Hi, in this video we're going to be focusing on embryology and fertilization and what happens when the egg gets fertilized. So this is kind of moving into the next section of chapter 14 and 15 where we're now focusing rather on the reproductive parts. We're now moving into the process that an egg slash fertilized egg goes through in order to become an embryo and then eventually a fetus. So now that we're studying embryos and the development of them, we can talk about the fact that we're studying embryology now, which is the study of organisms in their early stages of development. So we're really just focusing on human development and focusing on all the stages that it goes through, but embryology could also be looking at other organisms and kind of comparing and contrasting the way that they look at certain stages of development. So before we get going, I just wanted to mention a couple of things. So we're going to be studying this kind of 38-week period or 266 days where that single fertilized egg becomes a really complex human. So it goes through all of these different sequences of events where it multiplies and develops and basically turns into different tissues and organs and systems. So the prenatal development can be broken down into 3-month periods called trimesters, which you would have the first, the second, or the third trimester, or you can break it into embryonic versus fetal. So embryonic would be when we call it an embryo, and it's the first 8 weeks of development. Okay, and then eventually when it becomes a fetus, we would call it the fetal development, and that's going to be after 8 weeks till it's born. So those are the different ways that I can actually break down the pregnancy, whether I talk about trimesters or embryonic versus fetal development periods. So when I have an egg, when it becomes fertilized, what happens is the sperm will eventually swim through the female reproductive system, through the vagina, okay, through the cervix, through the uterus, to the fallopian tube, and eventually it will meet an egg. And once it gets to the outside of the egg, remember the acrosome has to break down the wall of the egg in order for it to actually get inside. So this is a picture of it breaking down the acrosome, okay, and the acrosome starts to digest this egg wall. And eventually it will get to the inside of the egg where it will release its nucleus, and the nucleus from the egg and the sperm will fuse together, and now it's a fertilized egg. So it wants you to draw kind of a general picture of this before you move on from the next slide. Okay, the other thing that happens that is important when we're talking about fertilization is normally or sometimes the egg will be found by more than one sperm. And to ensure that we only get fertilized by one sperm, okay, it's really important that the egg has some sort of mechanism to prevent it from getting fertilized by multiple different sperms. So basically it's called the fertilization envelope, and basically imagine it like this mechanism where it flicks off all the sperm that are around it, just so that the one sperm, once it gets inside the egg, okay, the rest of those sperm that are trying to get in will get kind of flicked off and thrown away from this egg, so that not 2 sperm nuclei come in, because that would obviously have 3 nuclei which would try to fuse together, and then it would make way too many chromosomes in the end, and this organism, this like fertilized egg with 2 sperm in it, would basically form something that the cell doesn't know what to do with all this information in the DNA, so it wouldn't form properly. And sometimes it can present itself as actually being a real pregnancy. So the woman will get symptoms of a real pregnancy, but it will eventually just grow into a mass of cells that is almost like a cancerous tumor, okay, which we don't want to happen. So to prevent this from happening, we want to use that fertilization envelope, and it flicks off all the other sperm around the egg so that only one sperm can actually access the egg's nucleus and fuse with it.